Hi, my name is Scott Wildman. I'm a behavior consultant with Lake Ridge Community Support Services. This video is intended to provide you with information about the Services in Applied Behavior Analysis, or ABA, that you will receive from our agency. Myself and a number of my colleagues aim to make sure that you're knowledgeable of the service we provide so that you'll be better prepared to work together to address your behavioral concerns. The topics covered in this video include what ABA is and what it isn't, the myths versus the reality of ABA, important information to consider before starting service, just what that service will look like, defining goals for behavior therapy, what's involved in assessment, treatment, and beyond, and finally, the adult education groups that we offer. But let me first tell you a little bit about Lake Ridge Community Support Services and what we stand for. At Lake Ridge Community Support Services, we've been offering individualized quality behavioral services since 1986. We use behavioral strategies to teach individuals new skills and reduce any challenging behavior while promoting the least intrusive treatment recommendations. We are committed to providing high-quality applied behavior analysis services by qualified clinicians. Lake Ridge Community Support Services is committed to fostering an environment of compassion and belonging in which employees and service recipients feel supported and respected. The community of belonging is one in which everyone is treated with dignity and promotes the voices and opinions of people from all different races, ancestry, places of origin, color, ethnic origin, citizenship, faiths, and creeds. All different sex, gender identity, gender expression, and sexual orientation. All ages, marital status, family status, socioeconomic status, disability, or different ability. We are committed to supporting and adapting services for individuals and their supports based on your needs as they apply to the services we offer. Our services are voluntary, which means that at any time during service provision, the individual or substitute decision maker can withdraw or decline to participate in services. All of the employees at Lake Ridge Community Support Services sign a confidentiality agreement when they start working here, and they re-sign this every year afterwards. If at any point during services, other professionals outside of our programs need to be communicated with, we will make sure to get your written permission first. So now let's talk a little bit about what Applied Behavior Analysis, or ABA, is. Just like biology is the study of living things, Applied Behavior Analysis is the science of behavior. ABA services is the application of that science. We use the principles of the science, such as the principles of learning, in everything that we do. ABA is a scientific approach to assessing and providing treatment for an identified socially significant goal. A socially significant behavior, or behaviors, are those that will have an improved impact on an individual's life. The behaviors we choose are preferably those that have the greatest effect, are the most naturally occurring, lead to other opportunities or new skills, and that first and foremost impacts the individual rather than just being a benefit to others only. ABA also aims to improve quality of life by focusing on behaviors that are important for an individual's learning: independence, communication, and socialization. For example, if we were deciding between teaching someone how to play chess versus teaching communication, it's apparent communication is more socially significant in that it has a greater overall impact on a person's life. One of the benefits of ABA is that it is meant to be individualized for the person, their mediator or caregiver, and the environment. That means it's adaptable to the environment it's implemented in, which allows for a broader range of application. ABA can be used in the home, at school, in the workplace, at recreational programs, in hospitals, and in long-term care homes. Just like ABA can be used in multiple places, it can also be implemented by many different people, including parents, caregivers, support staff, teachers, doctors, and so on. The application of ABA, however, should only be done under the supervision of a board-certified behavior analyst, or BCBA. These professionals will ensure mediators safely and accurately implement ABA procedures while limiting the risk of harm. Next up, Jessica is going to spend some time sharing some of the myths and facts about ABA.
Hi, my name is Jessica Lyle, and I'm a behavior consultant at Lakeridge Community Support Services. Together, we will be going over some myths and misconceptions about applied behavior analysis and the facts behind those misconceptions. One misconception is that applied behavior analysis is for individuals diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder only. There is a lot of research that supports the use of ABA strategies with this population. But in reality, ABA is an evidence based intervention that's proven to be effective for many different populations and settings, meaning it's useful and effective for other groups of people as well. Another misconception is that applied behavior analysis is the same as intensive behavioral intervention, where individuals typically receive 20 plus hours of service per week and many goals are targeted. IBI might also be known as comprehensive ABA services. In reality, applied behavior analysis is a science based on a set of principles that can be used to change behavior. ABA can be thought of as an umbrella, and IBI falls within that umbrella because IBI is a type of therapy or service that uses the principles of ABA. The umbrella of ABA also includes mental health, education, recreation, organizational behavior management, treatment homes, and more. Another misconception is that ABA bribes people. Bribing involves giving something, typically in order to stop behavior that is challenging. Bribes usually happen after a behavior has already started, as a quick fix to get it to stop. In reality, ABA uses reinforcement, which is a practice that either adds or removes something after a person's behavior. This increases the likelihood that behavior will occur again. Examples of things that can be used as reinforcers includes items, activities, gestures, comments, and more. For example, when I tell a joke and someone laughs, I'll be more likely to try to tell jokes again in the future. My joke telling was reinforced by someone laughing. You didn't bribe me by saying, "Keep telling your jokes, I'll laugh." Laughter was a natural reinforcer. But for some people, natural reinforcers might not be strong enough to change behavior. So we may need to add additional or external reinforcers. For example, every time Sarah does the dishes, she gets praise and access to her iPad. She is more likely to wash the dishes in the future. The reinforcer of praise and access to the iPad increased the likelihood that the behavior of washing dishes would happen in the future. Another misconception about ABA is that it promotes robotic behaviors or makes people act like robots. Effective ABA services plans for behaviors that are natural and practical within the individual's environment. ABA teaches skills. When learning new skills, it may take a while to become natural and fluid in performing those skills. As someone is learning a new skill, they may appear robotic. It will likely require more practice opportunities to appear and become more natural. Another misconception is that anyone can do ABA. In reality, ABA services should be supervised by a BCBA, or Board Certified Behavior Analyst, and can be used by those trained in ABA. You might be asking yourself, well, what about caregivers? Caregivers can definitely use ABA. Trained staff can help develop plans and train caregivers at home. When you're looking into ABA services, the first question you should ask is, will a BCBA be involved? Another misconception is that ABA needs to be done within a clinical setting. In reality, since the focus is always on socially significant behaviors, the environment depends on the target behavior. For example, If we wanted to teach someone how to use money to purchase a donut, it would be more impactful to teach this at a coffee shop. Next, we will be going through some factors to consider before starting ABA services. Our services include evidence-based ABA service, which includes conducting a comprehensive behavior assessment, behavior consultation using a mediator model, treatment recommendations that are based on assessment results and presented in a behavior support plan or consultation report, mediator training, and ongoing clinical support throughout the duration of service. Our services do not include speech therapy, occupational therapy, medical assistance, psychiatric services, or individual counseling focused only on mental health supports. With permission, we may involve a mediator during assessment and treatment phases, such as a parent, family member, caregiver, direct support professional, teacher, and/or employer mentor. The mediator model combines the mediator's expertise on the relationships and the environment with the clinician's expertise in ABA and behavior. In this model, mediators may be trained on specific behavior assessments and treatment strategies. This model promotes continuity of support and generalization of skills over time. The designated mediator is encouraged to attend all meetings, to participate in the assessment and treatment process, and to support the individual to practice skills and strategies between sessions. When starting services, it's important to consider if now is the right time to start. This includes having time to commit to the process and knowing who the consent provider is. When considering if now is the right time to start ABA services, ask yourself if you have time to commit to the process. On average, meetings would be bi-weekly for approximately 1 hour to 1.5 hours for a period of 6 to 9 months. Outside of meetings, you would be expected to collect information or implement strategies and relay this information to your clinician. Prior to starting services, it is important to determine who is the consent provider and have the required documentation to support it. For a minor, someone under the age of 18, the consent provider would be a parent or legal guardian. For a client over the age of 18, they may provide their own consent. Also, a substitute decision maker, a designated substitute decision maker with power of attorney for personal care, or the Office of the Public Guardian and Trustee may provide consent on their behalf if the individual has been deemed unable to provide their own consent. If you have decided that these services are not needed or they don't align with what you need at the moment, you can call Developmental Services Ontario, DSO, and remove your referral. If at any point in the future you decide that services are needed, you can always put through another referral. Next, I'll pass you over to Jamie to discuss what our services look like.
Hello, my name is Jamie Wallace. I'm a behavior consultant with Lake Ridge Community Support Services. This next section, I'm going to be walking you through what you can expect services to look like. When service is initiated, the first step is to pick a goal. We will discuss what skill does the client want to build or to learn to do. Defining a target goal could also include discussing a behavior that may be interfering in some aspects of the client's life. And maybe that client will benefit by decreasing that target behavior. Once the goal is chosen, we will move to an assessment phase. This phase includes gathering an understanding of why the behavior occurs, or what prerequisite skills does the individual have for building new skills, and any other important information that's going to help inform the treatment plan. Assessment may include interviews, questionnaires, collecting direct observation data, or other conversations with mediators or individuals who know that client well. From the information collected in the assessment phase, we'll then move to develop a treatment plan. This will be developed in collaboration with the client and the mediators. We're going to come up with a plan of how we want to teach or reach the goal identified, and then how are we going to put those recommendations into place. The last step is making sure that that skill or the behavior that we worked on continues to occur in new locations at different times of the day with new people or different people. The goal is really that the skills generalize and that they maintain as we start to fade ourselves out and once the referral is closed.
Hi again. Your involvement with Lake Ridge Community Support Services will be framed by the setting and pursuing of a target goal or possibly multiple goals. Let's talk about how we will define the goals that we pursue together. Everything you do is behavior. It's just the way that we act. This includes any behaviors, not just misbehavior. Behavior is any observable or measurable act of an organism. It must be observable or measurable to be considered behavior. That means thoughts and feelings are something that we don't consider as behavior because we can't see, hear, feel, or measure them accurately. A simple, though a bit morbid, question that we can ask is, can a dead or unresponsive person do it? Can a dead person be quiet? They sure can. So we can't observe or measure that. Can an unresponsive person be thinking? We don't know because we can't observe or measure it. Can a dead man lie still, not talk, not pay attention? Yes. So being quiet, thinking, laying still, and attention are not examples of behavior. Here are some examples of things that we can see and measure, and thus are behaviors. Walking, typing, singing, playing basketball, writing and analyzing, reading, eating, talking, listening, looking at or getting out of our seat, sleeping, brushing teeth, looking at others, and eating healthy food. Remember, behavior is any observable action carried out by a living organism, and the way in which each of us behaves is influenced by our genetics, physiological changes, and learning experiences. When selecting a goal for services, we want to make sure that the goal we are choosing is SMART, which stands for S, specific. This means we want to state what goal is going to be accomplished and the actions that will be taken. M, measurable. In order to be able to say that we achieved a goal, we need to be able to say how much of it happened or the quality of how it was demonstrated. A, achievable. A person needs to have the necessary skills and resources to successfully carry out the goal. R, realistic. Even if a person has the necessary skills and resources to carry out the goal, it is set at a level that reflects what is possible. T, timely. There should be a target date or criterion by which we assess that the goal has been achieved. If it will take too long to achieve, it should maybe be broken down into shorter term or smaller incremental goals. A goal that says, Sonny will get better at piano is not a SMART goal. Instead, stating that Sonny will play Old MacDonald on the piano with 3 or fewer mistakes by September 9th, 2023 is a much better SMART goal, even though it could probably be even better. The number of goals addressed during behavior therapy services may vary depending on the type of ABA service you're accessing. There are 3 broad categories or domains to select a goal from, and within the category, you may have 1 or more goals. Challenging behavior is the first one. The goal is to decrease those challenging behaviors. The second one is skill teaching in activities of daily living. The goal is to increase a person's ability to carry out meaningful tasks that increase independence and self-esteem. Challenging behaviors often occur as a byproduct of the sadness, anger, and frustration that a person feels from not being able to do the tasks independently. And the third one is skill teaching and communication. The goal is to increase a person's ability to make their wants and needs known in an effective and non-harmful way. Challenging behaviors like yelling, aggression, or self-injury can all result from a person not being able to communicate effectively in appropriate and non-harmful ways. If the goal is to decrease challenging behavior, this is any socially inappropriate behavior that may impact the individual, the environment, and/or the relationships. These types of behavior might interfere with learning, and they also might be of a high intensity. All challenging behaviors are individualized to the person exhibiting them. However, what they all have in common is that they are socially inappropriate or disruptive to the environment. Types of challenging behaviors include verbal outbursts, which could include screaming, swearing, and threats. Physical aggression, such as hitting, kicking, or punching others. Property destruction, such as hitting, kicking, or throwing of objects. Uncooperative behavior, such as refusal to complete a task or just saying no constantly or even running away. And self-injurious behavior, which can include biting of the hand, and skin picking. Within the domain of activities of daily living, we may find potential goals such as personal hygiene, community safety, household responsibilities such as cooking and cleaning, finances, and academics. Activities of daily living are the things that we perform daily to take care of ourselves, like budgeting, showering, getting dressed, preparing a meal, crossing the street, completing homework, or organizing our schoolwork. The third option is skill teaching and communication. Communication is behavior, as it is something that we do as organisms. Communication is individualized to the person. It can be verbal and nonverbal. It can be picture or electronic based. Teaching communication is relevant for any and all ages and expression types. The types of goals chosen for the communication domain can include vocal behaviors like articulation, labeling items, requesting something, making greetings, expressing our feelings, advocating for ourselves, and social skills. Or it can include non-vocal behaviors such as gesturing to others, physical leading, picture exchange communication system or PECS, augmentative and alternative communication, social cues, and facial expression. Examples of communication behaviors to be addressed can include greeting people, using manners, indicating our wants and needs, requesting preferred items, initiating conversations, using I statements, sharing feelings and thoughts, and communicating via PECS or including using a device or just on printed out forms. So now that we've talked about the types of goals that can be pursued in behavior therapy, Jamie is going to tell you about how we assess behaviors.
Now that Scott's walked you through some potential goals or target behaviors that would be appropriate within our service delivery model, the next component we'll be discussing the assessment phase. As previously mentioned, the assessment phase is very important to understand why the behaviors are occurring or what prerequisite skills do the individual currently have that we can build up on. During the assessment phase, we want to meet the individual where they are and go from there. So if the goal is communication, how are they currently communicating and where can we build that skill up? Your involvement as a parent, a caregiver, a mediator, or a support staff is extremely important throughout the assessment phase, as you know the individual best and will be able to provide important information to our clinicians. Assessment phase may include an indirect assessment or a direct assessment. What these are is direct assessment means that we're gathering information by directly observing and interacting with the behavior. This may include observations by your clinician, or maybe your clinician's asking you to gather or write down information when the behavior occurs. Direct observations could be done through video monitoring or other modalities. Your clinician will discuss with you the best modality that works for you. Indirect assessments include gathering information from other people involved. So that would include the things like interviews, questionnaires, or completing a file review. If there's a challenging behavior identified, the clinician will complete what's called a functional behavior assessment. The purpose of this is to identify the behavior of concern or the skills for development, identify any social, environmental, biological, or psychological factors which may impact the behavior. It's also to identify the cause or the function of the behavior. So the why. Why is it occurring? A functional behavior assessment also looks to identify factors that may be interfering with the learning and the quality of life of the individual. A functional behavior assessment will include all of those direct and indirect assessments. So observing the behavior, completing interviews, completing questionnaires, ongoing data collection, and possibly consultation with other professionals as needed. A functional behavior assessment provides valuable information that assists a clinician to create a hypothesis as to why that behavior is occurring. And from there, the clinician can recommend effective treatment strategies. This process involves the clinician conducting the assessment activities, analyzing the findings, and then providing you with an assessment summary. The findings from the functional behavior assessment will ultimately be used to develop that treatment plan and the strategies involved. This slide reviews what's called the biopsychosocial model. This model is used to gather information on what factors may influence the target behavior identified. The first section would be the biological section. So this is really looking at, is there a medical explanation for maybe why the behavior is happening? Because sometimes it's warranted to rule out a medical cause for an issue or a behavior before we even have to intervene with other strategies or recommendations. In the psychological section, this will outline other diagnoses, psychiatric disorders, mental health concerns, learning disabilities, or other cognitive skills or deficits. And in the social and environmental section, this will really highlight, what does the individual's environment currently look like? What is their living situation? Who are they supported by? And is there any other environmental factors that could be influencing an occurrence of the behavior? The information from the functional behavior assessment, or really the assessment phase as a whole, is ultimately gathered to indicate the probable function or functions of the target behavior. So when I say the function of the behavior, what I mean is, why is the behavior happening? What purpose is it serving for the individual? The function or functions fall into 4 categories: sensory or self-stimulatory, escape or avoidance, attention, or tangible, or to gain access to something. I'll provide you with some examples and definitions of each of the 4 functions of behavior. So first we see sensory. The sensory function provides a feel-good sensation or relief of a bad feeling. So you or I may crack our knuckles as a relief to some joint pain that we're having. An escape function, the individual is motivated by delaying or avoiding an event, an activity, or something else that's happening. I know I'm guilty of snoozing my alarm to delay getting out of bed in the morning. Or maybe an individual you support always has to use the bathroom right when you tell them it's time to complete their homework. In an attention function, this means that the person is motivated to gain attention from others. And that attention could be good or it could be bad. So maybe you know a child that often teases their brother while they're waiting for them to just react to that. And in a tangible function, this means that the person is motivated by getting access to something tangible. So an object, an activity, or a variant. I may ask for water, or I can get up and go to the tap and fill a glass of water. And the function is to get access to that cup of water. So the same behavior can serve different functions, meaning it could happen for more than one reason. And behaviors can look different and serve different purposes for every individual. So an example of maybe a behavior that's serving multiple functions would be if your child spits out their food at the dinner table. The sensory function could be they enjoy the sensation of spitting out food. The escape function could be that they want to get out of eating that certain food. And the attention component could be that every time I spit, dad looks at me and gives me a lot of his attention. And then the tangible would be that when I spit my food out, we move on to the next course in the meal, which means I get dessert. Ultimately, when we determine the function or the why, it means that we can provide the best possible treatment strategies for that target behavior. Applied Behavior Analysis, or ABA, is a science driven by data. This means that we use data to assess patterns of behavior, such as what often happens before, or how are others often responding to the behavior. This information provided through data allows us to determine a probable function, which ultimately informs the treatment plan, the strategies that we'll recommend, or how to address the target goals. ABC data is one direct observation method of data collection that's commonly used to assess the target behavior. ABC data stands for antecedent, behavior, and consequence. The antecedent section includes writing down what happens right before the target behavior. It's important that this information is factual. It's something that we saw happen and we're not perceiving what we think maybe happened. So this could include maybe you ask someone to put away their work and move to a new task. Maybe something is happening in the environment, such as loud noises, or someone new came into the environment. So it's really looking at what's happening in that environment right before the target behavior occurs. Then we would move to the behavior section, which is a description of the behavior. So writing down what target behavior occurred. What did it look like? What did it sound like? Is there any other important components that really capture that target behavior occurrence? And then the consequence section includes writing down what happens immediately after the behavior occurred. So how did you respond, or how did someone else in the environment respond, or maybe not respond if the behavior was ignored or nothing was provided? So an example might be that you talked to them, or you told them to stop, or you gave them something, you asked if they wanted to go for a walk. Any of those would be examples of the consequence, or what we do right after. So in this slide, we see an example of a filled-in ABC data chart. And in this occurrence, it happened on January 1st, and the antecedent was Tommy's tablet battery died. So right before the behavior occurred, the tablet died, the battery ran out. Then we see the behavior was that Tommy screamed and threw the tablet across the living room. And as a consequence, or what happened right after, Mom gave Tommy her phone, and then Tommy stopped crying. So we saw the behavior, and then right after, Mom provided the phone to Tommy, and that stopped the behavior. Ultimately, with this information, we can start to see and identify any known variables that could affect the behavior. We could start to see some patterns in the behavior as we get more instances recorded. We could start to understand the function of the behavior. So in this occurrence, we see that Tommy's screaming and throwing the tablet. He would like to get access to another device to continue maybe watching his video or playing a game. So we may say that we're starting to see a function of a tangible access to tablet or phone. And with this information, we can also start to understand what is the best treatment going to be? What are those recommendations that we can put into place? And ultimately understand if the treatment's working well. So as we monitor ongoing, when we put some treatment recommendations into place, we can see, are they effective and we're seeing less of the behavior, or are they effective and we're starting to see the skills build up and keep the individual safe, or promote positive and appropriate socially significant skills. As I mentioned, as we continue to gather occurrences of the target behavior, we're able to monitor on an ongoing process. So we would take the information that you're providing or that the clinician is gathering and analyze it via some graphs. So in this slide, you can see that Jane, she's performing pretty well. The percent of correct responses that she has across days is right around that 80% mark. So on average, she's doing really well and probably is responding as we would like to see happen. And when we look at Matt's graph, we can see that the percent of correct responses that he's engaging in is really fluctuating. It's not consistently kind of like Jane's, where it's at that 80% mark. And so maybe there's something going on that the recommendations are not working as effectively as we hoped. Or maybe this is assessment information and we can see that on some days he does really well and other days there's something happening that's interfering with his performance. So these are just some examples on how we would monitor the behavior ongoing and why it's so important that you're involved in that data collection and continue to gather data throughout the service delivery. This example shows a nice inclining trend in this individual's data. And again, this allows us to see that at the beginning, at the beginning of March, we were implementing something and the scores were lower. But over time, as we continue to work on the skill, we see those scores increasing, which shows us something is effective. And we should continue to utilize those strategies to really increase that individual's responding. So on this slide, we see a graph that displays both baseline and treatment data. And this graph really demonstrates the importance of data collection all throughout the service period and how we can evaluate that data. We see here that the difference in responding between the baseline period and the treatment period doesn't really demonstrate much of a change. And so without that initial baseline information, we may have assumed an increase in the behavior, but with the data from both the baseline and treatment phases, we can see that really overall responding has not had a significant improvement. So when we're targeting behaviors, we may target them for an increase, and in which we want to see a nice inclining trend in that data. We may target behaviors for decrease, and in that case, we would want to see the opposite, so a declining trend in the data. Or we may see no trend, and that would mean that it's not great. There's no progress being made. The behavior is either not decreasing or not increasing. And so, again, that information, that data collection, and ongoing monitoring is how we can kind of assess, are things effective and are things working? And is the behavior change happening in the direction that we want to see it go? So to conclude this section on data collection, I'll just briefly cover what treatment integrity is. So this is another, of course, aspect of data collection that's going to entail your clinician assessing if the strategies are being implemented as they were intended to be. So with accuracy and consistency. Again, this is a really important variable in a behavior change program and is measured through direct observation. So this concludes our section on data collection, and I'm now going to pass it over to Sharina.
Hi, everyone. My name is Sharina, and I'm a behavior analyst with Lakeridge Community Support Services. I am happy to be discussing support strategies, generalization, and maintenance, as well as adult education groups with you. So we know that ABA is a science. It's very data driven, and this data show us patterns and give us other very important information, such as the probable function that informs the behavior intervention, or the strategies we will use to address the target goals. We will actually go over the functions in the coming slides. So, what do behavioral supports look like? Well, the strategies recommended in each of these categories is determined by the results of the assessment. They will be very individualized, and we look at things such as the proactive strategies, skill teaching strategies, as well as some response strategies. Proactive strategies focus on prevention and setting the learner up for success. Some examples include setting expectations. For example, saying, I need you to behave at grandma's house. Well, this doesn't really include much detail, and we may not even know what that means. How about saying, when we get to grandma's house, say hi to her, then take your Nintendo Switch to the living room and play quietly? More detail is provided there. An example of environmental setup would be to set the environment up to encourage the appropriate skills and discourage the skills we want to decrease. For example, when teaching how to ask for something, we may place the piece of paper out, but maybe the crayons are out of reach, so they have to ask for them. Another example would be if I bang my head, maybe other people pay attention to me. If I get high quality attention every 2 minutes, I'll be less likely to bang my head to get that attention. Some examples of proactive strategies include timers, visuals, setting expectations, priming, environmental setup or positioning, use of a certain tone, non contingent reinforcement, as well as reminders. With a skill deficit, I may not know how to ask. When trying to learn new things, it may be that I don't know how to ask for what I want. I know how, but maybe I do it in an inappropriate way. So if I want something, perhaps I cry for it. In functional communication training, this would be replaced with vocal wards or pictures. So the crying that's seen would be replaced with a way to effectively communicate. And we would also want to increase appropriate skills that may already be in the learner's repertoire, meaning they already know how to do it, but be happening as frequently as we want. The way we respond to target behavior will be directly determined by the function or the purpose of that behavior. Remember SEAT, SEAT. This stands for sensory, escape, attention, intangible. The same behavior can serve different functions for different people or for the same person in different contexts, and behavior can actually have more than one function. Response strategies will also vary, so I won't give you too many examples here as these will be very individualized. I will say that if decreasing challenging behavior is the goal, safety is probably the highest consideration. Because intervention is function based, not all behaviors can be addressed by a single response. Now let's learn about generalization and maintenance. Generalization transfers a learned skill from one setting to another. So, what can you generalize? The materials, the people, the environment? Response generalization is, let's say I learn the features of a dog. That will help me identify that the animals in the top row are not dogs, and that the other animals in the bottom row are dogs, even though I was only explicitly taught that the one on the bottom left is a dog. Maintenance keeps the skill going by continued use and practice. Now let's talk a little bit about adult education groups. Here at Lakeridge, we have groups focused on understanding and developing skills for regulating emotions and supporting positive mental health. We also have a group dedicated to building skills to support the secure and safe use of the internet and social media. Also, we have a selection of groups that support the development of skills related to building safe, healthy, and mutually beneficial relationships.
Thank you for taking the time to learn about the service that we provide. By watching this presentation, we hope that you have gained some insight into what we do and why we do it. This can only be of benefit to the service you and your cared for person receive, since Lakeridge relies heavily on the involvement of clients and members of their support network. Please don't hesitate to reach out to Lakeridge by phone or email if you have any specific questions pertaining to the service you or your cared for person will be receiving. You can also visit our website at LRCSS.com or on social media for more information. Thank you so much for your time. All the best.